Hello everybody and welcome to Notorious Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm Notorious Glai, and it is a sad, somber week for all of us Mathmech players. Let's all have a moment of silence for our boy Mathmech Circular. And now that that's over, let's remember that we still have one copy of Mathmech Circular legal, and that's all we really need anyways. I've been playtesting and theory crafting a lot of post-Mathmech builds, and this is the one I'm the happiest with at the current moment. There are probably some changes I'll still make to it in the future, but for now I feel good presenting this to all of you as sort of a beta version for the upcoming format. We're not going to spend a ton of time talking about every single card and its wall of text and specific interactions in the deck, because odds are if you've found this video, you're already familiar with Mathmech, you're probably a Mathmech player, wondering what it's going to look like post-Banlist. So if you have any questions about a specific card or interaction, or wondering why I'm playing certain ratios or anything like that, please let me know down in the comments. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you have. And if you can't get a hold of me in the comments, highly doubt you won't be able to, but you can always hit me up on Discord too. I'd love to talk about Mathmech. I love talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! So talking about a deck that I'm actually knowledgeable about and I can feel smart about is even better. Let's not waste any more time. Let's do a quick card by card and then maybe talk about Mathmech as a whole. First up is our one and only copy of Mathmech Circular. We're only playing one because that's all we're allowed to play anymore. Sad, sad, sad times. It's okay though. Circular is only really needed at one copy. We're always going to have to search it out in this list. Long gone are the days where we would hard open it. And now that I'm thinking about it, more often than not beforehand, we would end up having to search Circular anyways, whether that be like Cynet Mining Small World or Allen version. I believe if you're running 3 Circular in a 40 card list, you only have a 30% chance of hard opening Circular. So the potential high upside hands of opening Circular are just gone. That's a dream. We're just going to have to resign ourselves to always searching Circular. And that's not a big deal all that much. That's, like I mentioned, that's something we were doing beforehand, and that's something that this list is going to be uniquely suited to do. Next up is our 2 copies of Mathmech Diameter. I've toyed around with playing 3 copies of Diameter, just because Diameter is one of the best cards you can be playing for a 2-card Mathmech combo. A normal summon Diameter plus a special summon extender, whether that be from hands off of something like Sigma, Addition, or Subtraction, or Graveyard off of Diameter's effect, is very good, very powerful, because that means you can overlay the Diameter and the level 4 you special summoned for Allen version, and Allen version will have an Omni Negate attached to it, which means you basically get to force the search of Circular through, or the search of Super Factorial, or whatever Mathmech piece you're missing, you get to force that search through. I'm only playing the 2 copies of Diameter instead of 3, just because I really wanted to limit the number of normal summons that I had in the deck. That's something I'm always concerned about. I don't ever want to be stuck with dead cards in my hand. I don't think you'd be wrong for playing a 3rd Diameter, because like I said, it's part of the best 2-card combo you can have. But ideally, I'd like to be doing a 1-card combo with sneak peek up here, Firewall Defenser. So for now, I'm playing 2, may end up being 3, and I have already have an idea of cards that I would cut for a 3rd Diameter. Next up is 1 copy of Mathmech Nabla. I'm playing Nabla because Nabla is a great rounding out piece, if that makes any sense. Nabla can tribute itself off to special summon another Mathmech from deck. That means if at any point in your combo you get interrupted or knocked off track, but you can put Nabla in the graveyard and revive it back off of something like an Allen version effect. You can use Nabla to tribute itself off or tribute another stray material off and get your 3rd Mathmech name into rotation. In theory, you could also normal summon Nabla and tribute itself off to grab something like a Circular to pair up with another extender that you have. But that is a very, very risky play, and I would not recommend it unless that is your only option to play with that hand. Next up is 1 copy of Sigma. We're only playing 1 copy of Sigma because Sigma is the partner for Circular. It's the card we always want to be sending off Circular so we can revive it back via its own effect. And with only 1 Circular, you only really need 1 Sigma. In theory, it could be nice to have a Sigma you can special summon from your hand if you don't have anything in the EMZ, but I feel like our next cards, Addition and Subtraction, special summon from the hand a little better. One of the big things now with Mathmech is it's going to be a little more tedious, require a little more effort and a little more work to get your 3 Mathmech names into rotation and into the graveyard. And Sigma banishing itself if it leaves the field, if it's used its effect to special summon from hand or graveyard, is kind of detrimental to that. I already alluded to Subtraction Addition, and we're playing 2 copies of each. We're back up to 2 copies each because these are basically free extenders, and more often than not, we're going to be playing a 2-card combo version of Mathmech. I'm being very pessimistic here. You can still play the one card version of Mathmech if you open something like Cynet Mining or Small World or even Firewall Defenser, but I'm always just anticipating they're going to eat an hash. But addition and subtraction represent easy extenders for if you get hand trapped or if you have to play the 2-card combo that I keep alluding to. Next up is one copy of Mathmech Equation. It's a free searchable Monster Reborn. Great, perfect extension. It's a no-brainer to include. And the next card that's also a no-brainer to include is Mathmech Super Factorial, one of our win conditions. If you get to properly set up and resolve Mathmech Super Factorial to summon a Mathmech Laplacian, you should win the game. You get to send up to 3 of your opponent's cards from back row, monster zone, and hand. Yeah, that's crazy powerful, and one of the reasons why Mathmech is so good and still so enticing to play, because you can still set up Mathmech Super Factorial pretty easily. Next up is 3 copies of Firewall Defenser. Firewall Defenser is the best normal summon in the game because it does the most on its own. A normal summon Defensor can get you into a link play and can get you enough material on board to overlay for Alimbertion by itself. So your normal Defensor, link it off for something for like a Link Kuriboh, use Defensor effect to grab the Firewall Guardian, use Firewall Guardian and the Link Kuriboh to overlay into a Splash Mage. Splash Mage, bring back Firewall Defensor, but before that, Guardian's effect is going to trigger and it's going to special summon itself back. And congratulations, you now have a Link 2 and Splash Mage, plus 2 level 4s on board, which you can overlay for Alimbertion. And then if your Alimbertion search goes through, congratulations, you found your way to Circular. And if it doesn't go through, well, no big deal. You have a Link 2 and 1 monster that have different attributes. You just overlay for Heat Soul, and you try and play Heat Soul Control, assuming that everything else in your hand is dead as well. And yeah, our target for Firewall Defenser, if you couldn't gather, is Firewall Guardian. Some of you may be wondering why I didn't want to play Firewall Phantom, and that's because Phantom's a level 5 monster, so you can't normal summon it. So it feels a little more bricky in this list, and with only having the 1 copy of Circular and our consistency dropping ever so much, I just didn't want to run the brick. I really enjoy playing cards in this list that I can normal summon, turn into a leak monster, and then try to find a way to extend from there. And Phantom doesn't really do that. Phantom does have really cool upside because it can search a Cynet spell or trap, like Cynet Conflict or Cynet Mining, but I'm using a different Cynet spell trap searcher, so we don't really need the Phantom. And in my playtesting, I found in almost every scenario where I had the option available to me to choose between Guardian or Phantom, I would always choose Guardian just because Guardian represented more material, whether that be for link summoning or for overlaying for Alimbertion. Next up is 1 copy of Cynet Conflict. I'm not completely sold on this making the final cut on the list. I like it because it's a very powerful card and it works really well in a Heat Soul Control type build. And I really like that if I were to get stopped from the main line combo and I have to pivot into like a Heat Soul Control board state, if I can find my way to Cynet Conflict, I feel a lot better about playing Heat Soul Control, especially if that means playing it without something like Super Factorial backing it up, because Heat Soul Control by itself really isn't that great. Heat Soul plus raw card advantage isn't going to do too much. Heat Soul plus raw card advantage plus an Omni Negate, yeah, that's probably going to do a little bit more, do a little bit better for all of us. And then here's a searcher for Cynet Conflict. I am playing Microcoder. I really like Microcoder over Phantom because you can normal summon Microcoder and you can link Microcoder off, and then if you have extenders in your hand, you can keep playing. And I also like that Microcoder can be used for a link summon from hand. So if you have better normal summons in your hand, you can keep that Microcoder in your hand. And then when it comes time to link summon a Kotak or monster, you can just use Microcoder from hand. If you do, you get to search like Cynet Conflict or even Cynet Mining if you want. So really liking Microcoder. Playing 2 copies because I want to see it with some consistency. Not playing 3 because I don't want to see it all the time in every opening hand. This may end up getting cut down to 1, and it may eventually even get cut down to 0 and go with the Cynet Conflict. These 3 cards right here, the 2 cutter and 1 conflict, are the cards that I would consider cutting for like a 3rd diameter, and I have a couple other options that I would put in their place too. But that's going to require some other play testing. But for now, I like searching Cynet Conflict. It just feels really good. And Microcoder is a little cool. Look at that cool little dude. Next up is 3 copies of Parallel Exceed. Fantastic. This is standard Mathmech stuff. I don't really need to talk about it all that much. Great extender. Great way to get 2 materials for Alimbertion. And great small world bridge. So there we go. 3 copies of Cynet Mining is next. This one's obvious. Gets you to Circular. 3 copies of Small World. This one is also kind of obvious. Gets you 2 circular, plus pretty much anything else in your deck. And then our Small World bridge, well, one of the main Small World bridges other than like Parallel Exceed, is Kurikara Incarnate. And I ended up going with Kurikara over something like Santa Claus because Kurikara could be used as a bridge for microcoder. And if I'm going to be playing Cynet Conflict in the list, I want to try and find it with some consistency. And I really like that upside. Plus, Kurikara can search Defensor and pretty much anything else in the list. One of the things I don't like about Kurikara is that it can't search Mathmech Circular because they both have 1500 attack and 1500 defense. So this is an invalid Small World search. But to me, that's really not that big of a deal because we have other bridges that can get us to a circular. I may end up pivoting back to Santa Claus, but for now I like Kurikara. Plus, Kurikara is just a good card going second to help try and break boards. I know there's a little bit of conflict with Kurikara and Firewall Defenser and I guess Transcode Talker, but that's something if you're aware of and you constantly keep that in your mind while you're playing, you should be able to play around. And Santa Claus also has the same confliction, I guess, because you're special summoning a monster that isn't a Cypress monster. So, you know, same issue. And then next up, we don't really have to talk too much about the non-engine stuff. This is just stuff that I'm playing because I'm testing in SIAC format. But once SIAC format rolls out, I'm sure I'll adjust the hand trap lineup to match that. But just know that you have 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 non-engine slots. So that's still a decent amount of hand traps you can run or board breakers or whatever else you want to do. I'm running a good mix of stuff that I just think is good in the SIAC format. One thing that I do wish I had was more room for hand traps, just because if I'm going to be trying to play like a Heat Soul control style build, especially if like my access to circular gets shut down, like I really want to have as many live draws for Heat Soul in the deck as possible. Then before we move on to the extra deck, I think I want to talk about the other cards that I would consider swapping out for the microcoder and conflict. And we already touched on diameter. Another one I've been thinking about is crossout. Crossout seems really good in this list because if we're going to be like very, very dependent on finding circular and searching circular, having crossout in there to just shut down any hand trap that would stop us from getting there seems very good. Plus, we already run a lot of hand traps anyways, or we have the ability to run a lot of hand traps anyways. So crossout kind of seems like a no-brainer. And then the other thing I would be thinking about is maybe something like Potted Desires. Maybe like add 1 diameter and then add 2 Potted Desires. It'll feel real bad if you have your access to circular shut down and then you desires and then you banish your circular off the desires. But getting draw 2 seems really good in a scenario where your access to circular was going to be cut off anyways. Then let's move on to the extra deck. So I have 1 copy of Alimbertion. Probably should be playing 2, but I really wanted to play the full scope of toolbox monsters during playtesting. That way I can see what comes up, what doesn't come up, and then make cuts and adjustments from there. Probably going to end up at 2 just because Alimbertion is so good. It can search you on one of your Mathmech cards. It's always nice to have 1 for combo, 1 for follow-up. Especially when you consider that Alimbertion is probably going to be a hand trap magnet when we go first. So if we're using Alimbertion to try and search circular and they get shut down and then we survive our opponent's turn, making another one on the next turn to try and get circular to kill our opponent seems really good. We're playing 1 copy of Loplation. You only need the 1 for the 1 super factorial. Then we're playing some Link ones. Link Rebo, great. Love that it has the trap negate to it. El Mirage, great. Turns hand traps into Cyber's monsters so we can play with them. And then Link Spider, pretty good because it allows you to play through Nib in some circumstances. Then our Link 2s, we got Cyber's Wicked, standard stuff, 2 Splash Mage, 1 for combo, 1 for follow-up, 1 Update Jammer to make our access code OTK line, and then 1 G-Golem Crystal Heart to really play around Nibiru. We'll talk about cuts or changes I may make to the extra deck in a little bit. Let's just finish the roundup because it's just a bunch of usual suspects. We have our copy of Transcode Talker, Heat Soul, and Access Code Talker, and then Terahertz plus D-Save Worm. Things I would consider cutting from this list. If I'm going to be playing G-Golem Crystal Heart, I don't really think I need the 2nd Splash Mage. It would be nice to have it, but I don't think it's a necessity. I might consider cutting the Link Spider and the G-Golem Crystal Heart and play the 2nd copy of Alimbertion and maybe put in something like a Mirrorlogic Aggregator. But for now, I like the ability to play through just force through Nib. And as far as other extra deck stuff, I don't really know. Terra, it still seems very, very good. If your opponent doesn't have the hand traps to stop you, making Terahertz seems crazy. Terahertz plus Super Factorial is a wonderful board. And I also like that Terahertz gets gigantic and can make multiple attacks, and that my opponent never realizes that it can make multiple attacks. So they leave a 8,000 attack terahertz on board, and they have a couple monsters in attack position. I just smash them twice per game. And that's about it for the card by card, everybody. I think we should probably talk about Mathmech as a whole now, just general random thoughts that I have, and then we'll get on out of here. So my expectations for Mathmech is it's going to fall out of metagame contention, but it will still be a very good and very playable deck. I just think it went from like a great deck, being like a tier 2-ish deck, to just a good deck. It went from being like one of the best 7 decks in the game to like one of the best 25-ish, if I had to put a random number on it. And for me, that's good enough. I definitely think this deck is still good enough to take the locals, maybe take to a regional, and do really well with. I do think it's going to be a little less resilient to hand traps because you always had the, option beforehand of just hard opening the circular 30% of the time, and circular's a fantastic starter and extender. That's not the case anymore. We're going to be a little hard up for just like raw extension through everything. I don't really know if we'll be able to eat hand traps like the way we used to, but I still think the deck can do some really cool, really good things, and has enough room for non-engine to cover up weaker board states. Oddly enough, another Banlist hit that kind of hurts this list is Cyframe Gear Gamma. People were already getting pretty wise, and if they saw Cynet Mining or Small World as our first activation, they were going to go ahead and ash that just to hope we didn't open circular, because I mean, I guess mathematically we had like a 70-ish% chance of not opening circular. And with Gamma gone, we don't get to punish them for trying to hash our first search to circular. So that one kind of hurts a little bit. I toyed around with playing 1 Gamma, 1 driver, and then 2 Cyframe Gear Delta, and I just ended up not liking that much. Feels good when you're going second and you open the Delta or the Gamma, but when you go first and you see them, it feels like you're just waiting for your opponent to try and hand trap you. You're just trying to bait them into hand trapping so you can get value out of the cards in your hand. Instead of playing 2 Delta, 1 Gamma, I think I'd feel more comfortable playing the 3 cross out, because it's always something you could like set and use at a key moment for one of your opponent's cards if they happen to share cards with your deck. And I think that's it. I think that's all the thoughts I got. Mathmech definitely got a little bit worse, got a lot worse, but still very good, still very playable. And I'm looking forward to testing it and playing it in person in the upcoming format. Please, all of you, let me know what your Mathmech lists are looking like. I'd love to see all the ideas everybody's got out there, because I definitely think there's a lot of potential in the Cyber's card pool, and I think there's a lot of potential for Mathmech as a whole. We still have the God card in Circular, have 1 copy, but we still have it, and we still have the God card in Mathmech Super Factorial. So as long as we have those 2, I think this list is very much alive. All right, everybody, I think that's going to do it. Please, if you liked this video, if you enjoyed this video, like, comment, subscribe. For those of you who are repeat watchers, you know how much I hate saying that and asking that, but it really does help out with the channel. It really helps me out, helps get more eyes and ears on my videos, and that means a ton to me. Content creation is something I really want to pursue, and I can't do that without all of your help. So thank you all so much. I appreciate you, and I'll see you on the next video. Be safe, have fun, everybody.